大家早上好，非常欢迎大家来到美丽的上海。I have to say, I was very impressed with Visa's capability. I know my boss, Chris Clark, speaks very good Mandarin. I had no idea, Joe, did you have a crash course? Impressive. 大家早上好哈。It's my great pleasure to welcome you to Shanghai. And also to share with you some of the dynamics and the innovations about the digital in China. In China, I mean, if you are, as Chris just said, if you are a foreigner or do not live in China, and if you go around, you may not find it as easy. But being Chinese, living in China, our daily lives actually is very convenient. And I want to share with you some of the innovations just around our neighborhood, around our daily lives, and what we do to make our daily life very easy. Have anybody went to a local restaurant these couple of days? Right? You may see that a lot of the restaurants are understaffed. There are not many waiters or waitresses around, but no worries. On every table, and almost a lot of restaurants, there's a QR code at the table edge. And all you have to do is use your phone to scan it, and the menu will come up with pictures, price, and then it even has an explanation of what that dish is all about. And you could pick the selections that you want, and voila, right? The food will be served at your table. And after you're done, you don't have to pay at the counter. You just pay at your table, right? With a couple of key punches, and then you're able to pay. And not only that, we're so dependent with our mobile phones. What happens if you run out of juice, right? Run out of battery? And you see a lot of these battery stands around the shopping malls or the restaurants, and you could borrow a battery charger. And if your credit score is high, you don't even have to pay for it. You could just take one, and based on your credit score, you could borrow it for a couple of hours. As a matter of fact, in China, everything, you could do it with your mobile phone. Right? I remember just even 3-4 years ago, I have a house helper at home, Ai, to help me with a lot of things, and I have to give her cash, right, on a weekly basis to buy groceries, to buy daily needs and all that. And now I don't even have to give her the cash. I'll WeChat her, or I'll do electronic fund transfer to her in instant and P2P to give her some money. But today, I don't even have to give her money because on a lot of the super apps, I'm able to go in to order toilet papers, products, and even food, right? Food that, hey, today I feel like having fish. I don't have to explain to my Ai what type of fish I like. I just go to the app and push a couple of buttons, and the food will be delivered to my house in 30 minutes. As a matter of fact, everything, whether it's takeout food or even I have a headache, I want to order some pills, and I could order it, and then it will be delivered to your house in 30 minutes. And not only that, in the apps, right, you could do a lot of services. I could make hospital doctor's appointment. You will list out the doctors, you will have the information, and I make an appointment. So it's almost everything that we do in China, you could do it with your mobile phone. And with all this, you may think that a lot of Chinese are phone zombies. And that may be true, because in the morning, the first thing that I do is reach out for my phone, right? And before I go to sleep, I'll take a look at the phone. But if you look at the time that Chinese are spending on the mobile phone, it's about 3 hours, and which is similar with the global daily average. So 3 hours. So it's not about how long the Chinese spend the time on the mobile phone, but rather what they do with it, right? What they do with it. 3 out of 4 consumers has made a purchase with their mobile phone in the past month in China. And 9 out of 10 consumers has made a mobile payment on the phone in the past month. And if you compare that with the US, it's only about 44% that has done a commerce transaction on the mobile phone, and only about 28% in China. And you see that little mark there, number 2 in the world in China. Does anybody know who's the number 1? Eat your heart out, it's Thailand. Thailand actually spend more time or more transactions on their mobile. So the integration of the purchase and the payment into the apps creates a lot more opportunities for unique digital services that comes up. And there's no one reason. You may ask me, why is China adopting the mobile commerce or mobile payment or all this mobile digital evolutions so quickly, right? What was the one reason? And there's really not one reason that contributes on why China is able to leapfrog and use these technologies on the digital innovations. And it's really a perfect storm, triggering the unique timing, environment, and culture in China. In Chinese, we have a saying called 天时, 地利, 人和, right? A combination of all these factors has done really making China progress on the digital innovation. On timing, if we look at the mobile internet that started a decade ago, with the internet, it's about 10–20%. And that combined with an affordable mobile data and a strong income growth and create a generation of mobile-first consumers in China who are really receptive to the new technology and willing to try new innovations and different ways of doing things. On the culture side, if you look at China compared to our colleagues in the US and Japan, you see that China is very low on the uncertainty avoidance score. What that means is the Chinese are willing to take risk. They're not afraid of taking risk. And also you see that China is very high on the power distance score. And what that means is we respect and follow the orders from top. And in China, you see that there's the 996 culture. You probably heard this term, which means working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and 6 days out of the week. And what all this does is it creates a culture and an environment that people are willing to take risks, but also try new things, and a startup culture. And with the environment, with a lot of the startup companies doing little different things and the innovations, the Chinese government actually took a very liberal approach on regulating the startups, which minimized the roadblocks for growth. So in the beginning, they allowed the startups to do different things using different technology and try different things. And once it matures, then the Chinese government will come up with a lot of regulations and guidelines to make sure that it's done in an orderly fashion. And at the same time, in China, the national ID system, the 身份证, right, connects with our phone numbers as well as with our bank accounts. And this allowed a environment that is very easy for the startups to use this data and implement a very strong identity control and defer the frauds. So all these factors combined, along with the large middle class, right, gives the startup the freedom to do new things and able to deploy and scale fast. Now, we all talked about the internet age and also the smartphones, and the percentage of the penetrations around the globe and also in China is very high, right? And we talked about a lot of people using this for our e-commerce. However, the percentage of the e-commerce is still very low. And there's a lot of opportunities for us to use these technologies, use these capabilities to provide a better service and better apps to our consumers. So this is what we call it, the asset story is over, but the use story just begins. In a connected world, any person, any place, and a thing is a potential payment acceptance point. According to the Gartners, and Chris just talked about the fourth generation, but according to the Gartners, the number of the IoT enabled devices expected to reach 25 billion by 2021, providing a new and diverse opportunities for the consumers and the business to pay and be paid. And in China, you see that everywhere you go, you see a lot of QR codes, right? Imagine if these QR codes are implemented in a non-standard way. So Visa, along with many of the companies, work together, right? Work together, and on the EMVQ to make sure that we have a guideline and standards so that everybody could use to implement this in a right fashion. Because if you think about QR code, any of these devices, right, can be connected to be paid. And then it's not even the QR code that if you look at all these 25 billion devices connected, whether it's a car, whether it's your mobile phone, anything could be really used and to make a payment. So this is a great opportunity for all of us, right? And the possibilities is beyond of what we can do today. However, the flip side of this hyper connectivity that has more access points and more devices means more data and more opportunities to explore. We certainly want to make use of it, but there's also a group of very innovative and very motivated set of people who also wants to use that highly creative, highly available data. And these are the fraudsters, right? They're very motivated, and they think of all different ways to see how do they get their hands on this data and make use of it. Now, if you think about Visa, who operates in 200 countries and geographies, and have 54 million of the merchants, that in few years could have 25 billion of the connected devices as part of our network, And if we're worried about one of that merchant is the weakest link, if that one merchant does not do security well and they could leak the information, imagine 25 devices out there, right? So the challenge ahead of us is phenomenal. Today, the cyber criminals are well organized and well resourced, and they're very sophisticated, and sometimes they don't even get their hands dirty, and they use other firms, other means to do the cyber crimes. As a matter of fact, this model helped them to grow their market into a 600 billion, right, enterprise industry in 2017. Chris earlier showed what that means to us. In 2017, this is 1% of the global GDP. So what should we do collectively to combat these fraudsters? And I want to go back to this basic chart that we all should be familiar with. And how do we do this? And there are really 4 pillars with this. And there's not one single pillar or one way of doing this, right? And it's very important that we do this in multi-layer. And this cannot be an afterthought. It has to be built into our foundations as we think about the innovations, as we think about different ways of combat the fraud. We call this responsible innovation. So this cannot be that we innovate and use the technology and come up with a very cool app and then think about the securities and fraud detections and fraud prevents afterwards. It has to be built into our foundation from the beginning. So with that, these 4 security pillars are very important. Protecting data, devaluing the data, and harnessing the data, and of course, most importantly, educate and empowering our consumers by sharing the information. Protecting the data, right? The data is very important. Certainly we have to protect it, but also devaluing it is very important. With all the 54 merchants and the acquirers that we work with around the globe, and this will be multiplied not by 1 or 2 times, but could be 10 times fold. And how do we ensure that we all follow the same standards and work together and devalue the data? We talk about the tokenization and all that, but the most important thing is if you don't need this data, don't keep it. If you don't need the account number, don't have it in your app, don't have it in your system. And we need to devalue the data so the criminals gets hold of this information, it becomes no longer useful to them. But what we have that is better than all of them is the data that we have, right? I mean, with all these devices, that we have all these informations, and if we make good use of it, using the latest technologies, such as AI and many tools, that we're able to harness this data and able to detect more accurately and more in time. And we're able to use this to stop, right? To stop the events or the criminal acts before it starts, and if it does happen, immediately to stop this and before it spreads. But I think most importantly is really sharing this information, sharing the common standards, sharing the same practices, and educate and empower our consumers to make sure they know about this. And I have to smile when Chris said about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, of course, I'm not going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on my bank apps. But I have to admit, just a few days ago, I did use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on an airline app. Because it's okay. I'm just using it to order a ticket or book a seat in advance. But the criminals will look for the weakest link and places to get this data. And if they're able to collect information and from many different places about you, and this will become a problem for us. So it's very important that we don't do this, and we need to be very conscious and preventive of these similar things. So with that, as Visa clients and partners, you may ask, so what is Visa going to do, and what can Visa help me in such a competitive market? We saw all the innovations around us. You saw all the commerce around us. Now, what are we going to do about this, right? And what can we do to help you? I'm very excited to share with you that on top of our 30 years of operational experience in China and our deep relationships with our clients and our partners in China, Visa has just recently opened a world-class innovation center in Beijing this March. Very excited about this. And we're taking the global capabilities and putting that in Beijing, certainly on the discovery, design, and develop, but most importantly, the unique flavors of China, right? The China environments, the understanding and the findings that we have, as well as the studies that we have done with our consumers and our partners to understand what the consumers want, what is valuable to them, and what features and functionalities they care about, and how do we apply that in China, but also the rest of the world. To give you a flavor of the unique China flavor, in Chinese we call it the yin and yangs, right? And also the yi jing. And with that, there's 5 elements: jin, mu, sui, huo, tu, right? Which is the earth, the metal, the water, wood, and fire, right? We call it the feng shui, right? The feng shui, or the 5 elements in China. To just give you some examples, the fire, right? We call it xing xing zi huo, a spark of an idea. A spark of an idea, and when collaborated together, we could come up with great innovations, and that could benefit everybody. Earth, 风土人情, meaning human-centered everywhere, right? And understanding of what the consumer's needs are and in the different environments. And it's the first step to our innovation. Metal, instant engagement, 千金一刻, right? It's not only important for us to understand what the customers want, but innovate from it, but the timing is critical. It needs to be now, and it needs to be at the right moment. So, and I could go on with the water and the earth, but it's very important that we work together to use that. We have done a lot of studies in China to understand what the consumers want. And then if you look at the super apps in China, there's a lot of the games. So, but it's not the games that matters. So why are the consumers hooked with these games, right? It's not playing the games, but it's the instant gratification. It's the instant gratification. Sometimes if you look at these red envelopes, when you make a purchase and they give you a red envelope, I mean, we're talking about pennies. So certainly, money-wise, it doesn't really mean a lot, but it's the instant gratification, it's the fun, that hooks the consumers to it. So we're taking that idea and into how Visa designs our loyalty, right? And how we reward the consumers in using our products. And as well as, if we look at the different apps, well, what is the unique value proposition that we could develop for Visa? I don't think copying is the right method or the approach, because what works for another company or another entity does not mean. So what is it that the customers needs, and we could come up with understanding of that and apply that to our unique value proposition and be competitive in this market as well as for the rest of the world. So with this human-centered everywhere innovation, we want to take these elements, right? We want to take these elements and put it into our discovery, design, and development, so we could come up with apps or the tools that could really help us, all of us, to compete. And not just compete in winning the consumers over, but also use that to make sure that we have the security, fraud, and all this in the measurement, and to use this data, AI, and technologies better, right, to combat the fraudsters and combat this fight. So together, we hope that we could work together, and collaboration is really key to our success. And the path that we have laid out for the payment industry requires a great deal of cooperation. I don't think there's one entity alone that could do this, and we have to work together across the sectors to drive responsible innovation as a payment ecosystem continues to evolve and grow. We have to protect our system to safeguard and the trust of our industry. Visa is committed to support the transformation of the digital economy growth and the inclusive social advancement by adding the value. And with the open collaboration, responsible innovations, and together we could really make the change. So with that, on my last slide, I will show you a video and hopefully to give you a glimpse of what's happening in China, as well as what Visa is doing in China. And before we end, I just want to remind all of you that after the session, please take the time to walk around in the Visa Avenue. We'll have the tea break, and please come back to this room by 11:15. Thank you, and have a great day at the Risk Summit and in Shanghai. Thank you. Video, please.
千里之行，始于初心。Visa 成立60余年以来，一直牢记使命，以创新、可靠和安全的数字支付网络连接世界，助力个人、企业和经济的蓬勃发展。在中国 ，Visa 更是以立足北京、服务全国作为新时代、新征程的新起点。时代变迁，潮流变换，砥砺前行是 Visa 不变的方向。中国改革开放40年 ，Visa 始终不遗余力地推动中国经济和社会的可持续发展。秉承负责任创新的理念 ，Visa 与中国57家金融机构、客户、商户及众多跨界伙伴紧密合作，推动行业进步，服务广大中国消费者。作为全球领先的数字支付公司 ，Visa 持续赋能中国支付行业的发展。携手国内产业，共创面向未来数字支付解决方案，与世界同步。根植中国市场30余年 ，Visa 与中国共成长，坚持为社会创造更多价值。携手同心，向上向远。未来 ，Visa 将继续致力于引领负责任的创新，培育未来一代负责任的金融消费者，践行企业社会责任，与更多合作伙伴。更多地区、更多力量连接，集众智、汇众力，推动中国社会可持续发展。